Good morning, morning still. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're okay. Wanted to come on today. I've just had a really fabulous session with a client and wanted to share some of the bits from it with you. We were talking about anxiety today, and we'd ascertained in the last session that we had that although anxiety is this thing that we don't like and it causes us lots of difficulties, actually what happens if we don't really want to get rid of that anxiety? What happens if there are benefits or perceived benefits to that anxiety? So we were working through what happens when you have anxiety, that actually there are benefits in having, because there's a lot of thought around the fact that anxiety is this terrible thing to have, we don't want it, we want to cut it out of our lives and what have you. And actually, yeah, there are lots of cons to having anxiety, there are lots of difficulties it causes, but what if actually you can't imagine what would be in its place? What if you can't imagine feeling anything different from anxiety? What if anxiety is actually something that stops you feeling isolated and alone? So we were exploring some of these things today, and I decided just to turn the whole sort of anxiety thing on its head a little bit. So we started talking about anxiety as if it's a boyfriend. So we called anxiety Richard, because anxiety is a bit of a dick. And we were talking about the anxiety, but instead of referring to it as anxiety, we talked about it as Richard. And actually, the similarities between difficult relationships and us having anxiety are massive, because I have a belief, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I have a belief that you can learn to live with anxiety, but you can't get rid of anxiety altogether. Anxiety will always exist. That's my opinion of it. If you feel differently, then that's absolutely fine. I completely understand that. But I don't think there'll ever be a time where I have no anxiety whatsoever. And if there would be, that would, for me, feel a little bit weird. I wouldn't know sort of what to do with that. I've learned how to live with anxiety. But turning it on its head, what happens if you start writing about your anxiety as if it is a boyfriend, a toxic boyfriend who is not very good for you? You love them, you don't want to be without them, you don't want to be single again, all of these sorts of things actually copy across to anxiety really, really well. So we talked a bit more about it and came to the conclusion that this isn't about cutting anxiety out of your life. This isn't about dumping anxiety and moving on to another relationship. It's about understanding that anxiety might be with us long term, but there are ways of dealing with that. There are ways of coping with it, but actually it's our time to put boundaries into the relationships. So my question to you today is, what happens if you consider your anxiety to be a relationship that you're in that's a little bit toxic, or a lot toxic, depending on how bad your anxiety is? What happens if you start writing about it as if it's a person? What happens to your mindset around it? And what boundaries can you put in place in that relationship to say, actually, you're not in control. I'm in control. I get that you're there, and I'm going to give you a little bit of time. And when I say a little bit of time, if you are sitting with the thoughts, you do need to give yourself an expiration date on that. So if you're going to sit with the thoughts, put a timer on your phone. If you're going to sit and journal with your thoughts, it could be 10 minutes, it could be 15 minutes, it could be an hour. But actually at that point, you then have to put the things in place that mean you're going to do what it is that you need to do. Not going to be a magic solution, not going to work straight away, but give it a try. Journal about your anxiety as if it is a toxic relationship in your life and see how that might change it. Work out where you can put boundaries in place. What is Richard stopping you from doing? What is it that Richard doesn't really like you doing? In a similar way that a boyfriend might be like, oh, don't go out with your friends, stay in with me tonight. Or they might be like, oh, I don't really like it when you go out with your friends, so I'm going to kick off a little bit afterwards just to show you that that wasn't okay. So what does anxiety do for you as if it was a relationship? Where can you put the boundaries in place in order to start moving forward? Where can you say, okay, I get it, you're going to be with me long term, but these are the coping strategies that I've got to put in place. These are the amendments that I need to make to our relationship between Richard and ourselves. Those are the boundaries that we need to put in place in order to move forward. It was such a great session. I had to come on here afterwards and share that with you. Lots of love to you all. Have a great weekend. I will see you next week. And just, make sure you get some downtime this weekend and spend some time being kind to yourself. Lots of love. Bye.